Hey everyone, it's Miranda at Peace, Love, and Happiness Club, and today I'm going to talk to you guys about our Aroid mix. If you've been into our stores before, you'll have seen these on our shelves. We have it at both our houseplant location and here at our collector plant location where I work. We usually recommend it for philodendrons, monstera, pothos, scindapsus. Any aroids would do really well in this mix. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about it, but then I'm also going to tell you a little bit about some ways that we're starting to kind of tweak it based off of our owners, John and Neil's recent experiences in Thailand, because we're always kind of learning and growing and trying out new things with our plants. And we've started using a blend on some of our plants that I also wanted to tell you guys a little bit about, because we are probably going to offer that for sale in the future too. So. Okay, without further ado, what better way to talk about the soil than to literally dig through it and show it to you. I'm gonna open this bag up and I'm gonna pour it in here and talk to you a little bit about how we make it, give you all of our trade secrets. So this is what we've been selling for our Aroid mix for honestly as long as I have worked here. And to make our Aroid mix, we start with a base of mainly potting soil, and the biggest things that we're going to look for in our Aroid mix is we do want some moisture retention, but we also really want it to have good drainage, and not only that, we want it to have chunky drainage. A lot of different aroids have really thick roots, and so if you just put them in potting soil, those roots are going to get a little bit too waterlogged and not be super happy, be much more prone to root rot. So we want to make sure that it's got a lot of stuff in there for drainage, and then also some chunky stuff in there to add some airspace into the soil and some more physical structure too. We start off with potting soil as the base. We've also got some little pieces of perlite in there. Perlite is super common in a lot of different soil blends. It's really light. It almost reminds me of Rice Krispies or something kind of puffed like that. Got a little bit of pumice in there, which is a little bit heavier than perlite. I'm not sure if anybody else has experienced this, but I know that in my own plant collection, when I've been messing around a little bit with soil blends, I've noticed that over time the perlite seems to really rise to the surface of the pot, especially over like a couple of years in between repottings. So the pumice is really great because it'll kind of stay a little bit lower down in the soil and not rise up over time, since it's much more dense than the perlite is. In this batch, we've also got some pieces of charcoal here. We've got some orchid bark, nice big chunks of it, which is really going to help add a lot more airspace to the soil here. As far as a recipe, we do have a recipe for kind of what we like to put in it, but once you make the batches a few times, honestly, we don't have any measurements as far as how much potting soil or the ratio of potting soil to perlite to charcoal to orchid bark or anything like that that we add. We do kind of eyeball it, but you're going to want to go for just about this consistency and texture here. So as you can tell, there's definitely a lot of soil in there, but then you can also really clearly see all those other things that I mentioned to add drainage distributed throughout the mixture. A lot of the potting soils do have organic material in them already, but we do add just a little bit of earthworm castings, as we found that kind of helps give the plants maybe a little bit of an extra boost in growth, which is really great. I know I had been using earthworm castings with my plants at home, which they have really been loving. Now I'm gonna put this one on this side, and this is the new mix that we've just started using, and I'm gonna put them next to each other. My left here, where my hand is, this is the Aroid mix that we've been selling for a long time, and on my right here, where my hand now is, this is the new mixture that we've been using. So visually, you can see that there are a lot of differences between the two mixes, and I'll go through some of that with you. As I mentioned, one of the biggest ingredients in this Aroid mix that we've been selling is potting soil. This one has almost no soil in it. So one thing that we had noticed here in the store is that plants that were in this soil, especially given our humidity conditions, our temperature, and our watering schedules, were getting maybe a little bit too waterlogged, especially around the roots. And so this mixture is a little bit better in terms of giving the roots a lot of airspace and being a little bit faster draining as well. We use some cactus soil, not a ton, just a little bit to really help add that, like add some soil in there, but then also have a lot of different ingredients for drainage. The cactus mix that we sell and we use in the store is honestly seems to have a lot of sand in it, and then also has some pumice in it as well. So that's one constant between the two. We also have a good amount of perlite in here. As I mentioned, perlite is used in a ton of different soil blends. It's a really, really great thing to just have on hand if you're looking to make your own soil. We also have a lot of these cocoa husks in there. And so these are gonna be kind of similar in size to the orchid bark there. To hydrate them, we do soak them in mostly water, but also a little bit of our root stimulator by Bloom City that we sell in the store, just to kind of help create a really nice thriving microbial community for the plant's roots. And then we also add some of our sphagnum moss and perlite mixture that we do sell in store as well into this one to kind of aid moisture retention a little bit too. So as you can tell, and I'll bring it a little bit closer to the camera so you can really see, this one right here is our original Aroid mix, and this is the new mixture that we've started using. So yeah, much chunkier, much less soil, much more drainage, and we've really been liking it so far too. So here's a piece of orchid bark, and then here's that cocoa husk. Visually, they look to be kind of about the same size. The orchid bark definitely holds much less moisture than these cocoa husks though. If I squeeze it, you can literally see that water coming out of there. So these ones definitely hold on to a little bit more moisture too, whereas the orchid bark kind of is just there to add more airspace to the soil. Another thing that is really different about them is that the orchid bark tends to add a little bit of acidity to the soil as well, which the cocoa husks do not. So if you are dealing with some plants that have more delicate pH requirements, that's also really something to take under consideration. Another thing, kind of going back to the difference between like this one having soil, this one not really having soil, is that this one is going to hold onto moisture for much longer. So this is more of like a standard Aroid mix that you would probably make at home, whereas this one again is definitely much different than this one. I personally still use something like this for my plants at home because I tend to not water quite as often, whereas with this one you might find yourself watering a little bit more often just because there's so many more things in there for drainage. Definitely look at the substrate that the plant is using visually, but because we use such a wide variety of substrates here in the store, we also really test out whether our plants need to be watered or not based on the weight and feel of the pot. So since this one has so much soil in it, just in general, the pot that your plant is in is going to be a lot heavier as a baseline than one that contains this mix instead. Just in general, like when you're getting a plant with a soil mix, I like to pick my plant up right after I've watered it to kind of feel how heavy that is. And then kind of when I first get it, I pick it up kind of every day after that for a little bit just to kind of see how much lighter it gets and kind of feel what the weight of my plant would need to feel like when it really needs to be watered. So I would definitely do that, especially if you're going to switch over to this mix at first too, because it's definitely going to take some getting used to if you've only been using soil-based mixes. Anyways, I hope y'all have enjoyed our little dirt exploring excavation adventure that we've been going through today. I really love helping to advise people on soil here in the store, so definitely if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments, and we'll get back to you on that. And you can also always feel free to email us, to message us on Instagram, and we are so happy to answer questions. All of us really love plants, and we honestly love talking about this stuff. So anyways, make sure that you like, comment, subscribe. Stay tuned for all of our other videos, and I will see you next time. Peace out.